In the depths of the unknown regions where starlight dies and ancient darkness reigns, two figures stood before a throne of infinite shadow. They had come as saviors. They would leave as conquerors. Long ago, in an age when the Republic trembled and worlds burned, two Jedi Knights defied the wisdom of ages. Revan and Malak, names that would echo through millennia, heroes who became legends. Legends who became monsters, brothers whose bond seemed unbreakable, forged in the fires of the Mandalorian Wars, tempered by victory after impossible victory. But power whispers, and power corrupts. On Malachor 5, they made a choice that killed thousands of their own soldiers. In the unknown regions, they discovered secrets that shattered their souls. Before the Starforge, they embraced darkness willingly. And in one final, terrible moment aboard a burning bridge, one brother betrayed the other, firing upon his own master's ship while Jedi swarmed the deck. This is not a story of simple villainy. This is the tragedy of two men who wanted to save the galaxy so desperately that they became its greatest threat, of a friendship so profound that its destruction nearly tore civilization apart. Of forbidden meetings in shadowed chambers where destiny was decided and darkness was embraced. Tonight we journey into their fall, from the council chambers of Coruscant to the killing fields of Malachor, from the corrupting temples of Korriban to the Emperor's throne on Drummond Cassas. We will witness every choice, every justification, every step down a path paved with good intentions that led straight into the abyss. The question is not how they fell. The question is whether any of us, given the same circumstances, the same power, the same impossible choices, would have done differently. So before you settle in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy these deep dives into Star Wars lore. Here's something interesting. About 62% of you watching right now haven't subscribed yet. If you're finding value in these stories, that subscribe button really helps this channel grow and lets me bring you more legends from a galaxy far, far away. Drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing our community span across different time zones and countries. It reminds me that great stories truly do connect us all. Now dim the lights. Get comfortable under your blanket, maybe turn on a fan for that gentle background sound, and let us begin this journey together into the darkness where heroes fall and brothers become enemies. The year was 3964, before the Battle of Yavin, 3 years into a war that was consuming the galaxy like a slow, relentless plague. The Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders, led by the fearsome Mandalore, the Ultimate, had been ravaging the Outer Rim for years. World after world fell to their brutal conquest. The Catha species, nearly driven to extinction in a horrific genocide. Sirocco bombarded into ruin. Taris under siege and bleeding. Entire systems burning while the Galactic Republic's fleet scattered and broke before the Mandalorian advance. And through it all, the Jedi Council sat in their temple on Coruscant and decreed that the Jedi Order would not intervene. Master Vrook Lamar, ancient and stern, spoke the Council's judgment to the assembled Jedi. The Force shows us a greater darkness beyond this war. We must not be drawn into conflict. We must wait and watch and trust in the will of the Force. But in the war rooms of the Republic, far from the pristine halls of the Jedi Temple, younger voices were rising in furious dissent. Revan stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, watching red markers spread like infection across the blue territories of the Republic. He was young for a Jedi Knight, barely into his 20s, but his tactical mind had already earned whispers of genius. Dark hair fell to his shoulders. His eyes, still brown and clear, held an intensity that made even seasoned admirals pause. He wore simple Jedi robes, but they were dusty from travel to war-torn worlds. His hands moved across the display, calculating, always calculating. Each red marker represented billions of lives under Mandalorian occupation. Each day the Council delayed meant more death, more suffering, more worlds lost. Beside him stood Alec, soon to take the name Malak, tall, powerfully built, with sharp features and fierce loyalty burning in every gesture. Where Revan was the mind, Alec was the sword. Where Revan spoke of strategy, Alec spoke of justice. They had been friends since their earliest days as younglings in the temple, closer than brothers, trusting each other with an absolute faith that seemed unshakable. Around them, other young Jedi gathered. Mitra Surik, quiet but determined, her connection to the Force unusually strong, feeling the deaths across the galaxy like physical wounds. Dozens more, faces young and old, all united by a single burning question. How can we call ourselves guardians of peace and justice while we stand aside and watch innocents die? Republic officers filled the rest of the chamber. Admiral Karath, his uniform bearing the marks of too many desperate battles, looked at these defiant Jedi with something between hope and desperation. Captain Carthanasi, younger then, idealistic, believing that heroes could still save the day. The hologram flickered, updating with new casualty reports. Another colony lost. Another 3 million dead. Revan's jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. This was the moment, the choice that would change everything. Alec placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. Whatever you decide, brother, I stand with you, now and always. Revan turned to face the assembled Jedi and officers. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of absolute conviction. The Council teaches us compassion. They speak of protecting the innocent and serving the light. Yet they order us to stand aside, while billions suffer and die. He paused, letting the words sink in. I cannot reconcile their wisdom with their inaction. I will not watch this galaxy burn while debating philosophy in temple halls. The room erupted. Some Jedi voiced immediate support. Others protested, warning of the consequences of defying the Council. The Republic officers looked on, hardly daring to hope. Revan raised his hand, and somehow silence fell. We leave the Order today. We take up arms for the Republic. We become what the galaxy needs, what the Jedi Council refuses to be. He looked each person in the eye. We become the Revanchists, those who will take revenge against this evil, those who will fight. Alec stepped forward, his voice ringing out. I am with Revan. Who else will answer the call? One by one, hands rose, young Jedi Knights stepping forward, leaving behind the only life they had ever known. Mitra Surik, her face set with determination. Others, their names soon to be recorded in the tragic annals of galactic history. They did not know it then, but this was not an act of heroism. This was the first step into darkness, the first decision where they placed their judgment above ancient wisdom, the first crack in the foundation of their souls. Outside the windows, Coruscant gleamed in the sunlight, beautiful and serene, unaware that within this chamber, two men had just set in motion events that would very nearly destroy civilization itself. The Revanchist movement had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Jedi Council's response came swiftly and without mercy. Master Vrok Lamar himself delivered the judgment in the council chambers, his voice cold as ice. You are no longer Jedi. You have broken your oaths, abandoned your training, and turned your back on thousands of years of wisdom. When you leave this temple, you leave behind everything you were. Revan stood before the semicircle of masters, unbowed. Then I leave behind fear and inaction as well. Master Kavar, younger than Vrook, but no less troubled, leaned forward. Revan, please, you don't understand what you're facing. This war is not what it seems. There are forces moving in the shadows, manipulating events. If you go down this path, you will be playing into their hands. Revan's response was steady, almost gentle. Then tell me what I'm facing. Explain these hidden forces. Give me wisdom instead of warnings." The council remained silent. They sensed something, felt ripples in the force that spoke of greater threats, but they could not name what they feared. They only knew that sending Jedi into this war felt wrong, dangerous, like stepping into a trap whose jaws had not yet revealed themselves. "We cannot explain what we ourselves do not fully understand," Master Vrook admitted, finally. "We only know that acting now in haste will lead to darkness." Alex stepped forward, his voice sharp. "So your wisdom is to do nothing while the galaxy burns, to trust in vague premonitions while real people die in real time." The tension in the chamber could have been cut with a lightsaber. Other young Jedi stood behind Revan and Alec, faces set with determination. The Masters looked upon them with sadness, seeing their own failure reflected back. They had taught these young ones to value compassion, to protect the innocent, to stand against evil. Now those same teachings were being used to justify rebellion. Master Kavar spoke softly. "You will fall, Revan, you and all who follow you. The dark side is subtle. It does not announce itself with thunder and lightning. It comes as righteousness, as necessity, as the only logical choice in impossible situations. By the time you realize what has happened, it will be too late." Revan met his gaze without flinching. "Then I will fall saving others rather than stand pure while they die." He turned and walked from the council chambers. Alec followed immediately, loyalty absolute. One by one the other young Jedi turned their backs on the only home they had ever known and followed their chosen leader into war. As they descended the temple steps, Alec spoke quietly. "No turning back now, brother." Revan looked out over the city planet of Coruscant, its towers gleaming in the afternoon sun. No turning back. But something in his voice carried a weight that Alec did not yet recognize. A certainty that went beyond confidence into something harder, colder, the first imperceptible change in a man who would change the galaxy. They named themselves the Revanchists, those who would take revenge for the atrocities committed against the innocent. The Republic military welcomed them with desperate gratitude. Admiral Karath personally oversaw their integration into the command structure, and within weeks, Revan and Alec were given ranks as generals with full authority over fleet movements. The war changed immediately. Revan's tactical genius became evident in the first major engagement at LOTR 3. The Mandalorians had entrenched themselves on the planet's surface, confident in their superior position. Every simulation, every strategic analysis suggested a lengthy siege with horrific casualties. Revan saw something no one else did. He noticed patterns in the Mandalorian supply runs, weaknesses in their defensive perimeter that appeared random but actually revealed a fundamental flaw in their doctrine. Within 72 hours of arriving in system, he had outlined a strategy that seemed impossible. 3 days later, LOTR 3 was liberated with minimal Republic losses. The Mandalorian commander, captured and brought before Revan, stared at the young Jedi with something approaching awe. "How did you know? How could you possibly have known our movements?" Revan had no answer. The knowledge had simply been there, as if the Force itself was showing him paths to victory that should not exist. He saw battles not as chaos, but as puzzles, each piece moving according to laws he could instinctively understand and exploit. Victory followed victory. Sirocco, though already devastated, was retaken. Duro's orbital facilities were reclaimed. The Republic fleets, scattered and demoralized for years, rallied under new leadership. Soldiers who had known only retreat suddenly found themselves advancing, pushing the Mandalorians back system by system. And through it all, Revan and Alec fought side by side. Alec, who now insisted on being called Malak to mark his break from his old life, became known as the Jedi who never fell in battle. His prowess with a lightsaber was legendary. Where Revan saw patterns and strategies, Malak saw enemies to be overcome through sheer strength and determination. Together, they seemed unstoppable. But the war was changing them in ways too subtle to notice at first. The pivotal moment came on a world called Cathar. The revanchists arrived too late. The Mandalorians had already committed genocide, nearly wiping out the entire Cathar species in a brutal display of power. The survivors spoke of a lone female Mandalorian warrior who had tried to stop the massacre, who had stood against her own people and died alongside the Cathar, rather than participate in the slaughter. Revan walked through the killing fields, his boots crunching on scorched earth, bodies everywhere, thousands upon thousands, men, women, children, an entire civilization reduced to corpses. He found the Mandalorian woman's body among the dead Cathar, still clutching her weapon, her red and gray helmet cracked but intact. Something about her sacrifice moved him deeply. She had chosen conscience over loyalty, had died for strangers rather than obey evil orders. Revan lifted the helmet, studied its design, felt the weight of it in his hands. Malak approached, his voice gentle. "What are you thinking?" Revan's response was quiet. "I'm thinking that the Mandalorians only respect strength. They see mercy as weakness, hesitation as cowardice. If we're going to defeat them, we must become what they fear." He placed the helmet over his own face. The seal clicked into place, and through the visor, the world took on a different hue, slightly red, as if seen through blood. Malak felt a chill run down his spine, though he could not say why. "Brother, you don't need to wear that." Revan's voice filtered through the helmet's speakers, came out slightly distorted. "Yes, I do. This warrior chose righteousness over her people. I will wear her mask as a vow. I will defeat the Mandalorians. I will make them fear what they have created." From that moment forward, Revan never removed the helmet in public. It became his face, his identity. Where once there had been a young man with expressive features and warm eyes, now there was only the mask, cold, implacable, terrifying. The psychological impact was profound, though Revan himself did not recognize it. Behind the mask, it became easier to make difficult decisions, easier to order soldiers into situations where some would die so that others might live, easier to calculate victory in terms of acceptable losses rather than human lives. Malak noticed, late one night, aboard their flagship, he found Revan still wearing the helmet, studying battle reports in his private quarters. "You never take it off anymore," Malak said quietly. Revan didn't look up from his datapad. "It's a symbol. The troops need to see it. The Mandalorians need to fear it. But what about you? What do you need?" A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Revan responded, his voice flat through the helmet's speakers. "I need to win this war. Nothing else matters." Malak wanted to argue but found he had no counterpoint. Winning did matter. Every day the war continued. More innocents died. If wearing a mask and becoming a symbol helped achieve victory faster, wasn't that justified? He told himself it was. But some part of him, some small voice of warning, wondered if they were losing something more important than they were gaining. The victories continued, but their nature began to change. At Duro, Revan made a decision that would haunt the Republic for years. The Mandalorians held the planet's orbital manufacturing stations, using them to repair their fleets and build new weapons. A direct assault would take months and cost tens of thousands of lives. Revan calculated a different approach. He ordered the Republic fleet to retreat, to deliberately abandon a small garrison on the planet's surface. The Mandalorians, sensing weakness, committed their forces to pursuing the fleeing ships. That's when Revan sprang his trap. The Republic fleet turned and struck, catching the Mandalorian forces out of position. The orbital stations were destroyed in a devastating bombardment. Victory was absolute. But the garrison Revan had abandoned. They were overrun and slaughtered to the last soldier. 300 men and women who had trusted their commander, sacrificed as bait for a strategic masterstroke. Admiral Karath confronted Revan in the war room afterward. "You could have warned them. You could have given them a chance to evacuate." Revan's response was delivered without emotion. "If I had warned them, the Mandalorians would have sensed the trap. The men died believing they were being rescued, not abandoned. Their sacrifice saved thousands of other lives." Karath stared at the masked figure before him. "When did we start calculating lives like numbers on a ledger?" "When we decided to win at any cost," Revan replied. "That's what you asked of me. That's what the Republic needed. A commander willing to make the choices the Jedi Council refused to make." Malak stood nearby, silent. He wanted to object, wanted to say this had gone too far, but he looked at the tactical display, saw the strategic brilliance of Revan's plan, understood that those 300 deaths had indeed prevented thousands more. The logic was unassailable. And logic, cold and clear, became their guiding principle. They began using tactics borrowed from the Mandalorians themselves. Terror strikes against supply lines, brutal efficiency in combat, the deliberate targeting of enemy morale through displays of overwhelming force, every choice justified by the mathematics of war, by calculations of lives saved versus lives spent. The Republic soldiers who served under them noticed the changes. Their commanders were no longer quite Jedi, no longer bound by the gentle philosophies of the Temple, but they were winning. And after years of desperate retreat, victory tasted sweet enough to overlook the growing darkness in their methods. It was during this time that Revan made a discovery that would change everything. On Dantooine, near what would one day become the Jedi Enclave, there stood ancient ruins dating back millennia. Revan, always curious about tactical advantages, ordered an expedition to search for anything useful. What they found was a star map, a holographic interface created by a species called the Rakata, who had ruled the galaxy 25,000 years before. The star map showed coordinates to other maps scattered across known space. Assembled together, they would reveal the location of something called the Star Forge, an ancient space station capable of producing unlimited ships and weapons by drawing energy directly from a nearby star. Revan stood before the glowing hologram, his masked face reflecting its blue light. This could end the war immediately. With this kind of production capacity, we could overwhelm the Mandalorians in months instead of years. Malak studied the ancient text scrolling past. "Should we inform the Council?" Revan's response came too quickly. "The Council would forbid us from seeking it. They would sense the dark side energy involved and declare it too dangerous. We cannot risk that." "But if it is dangerous—" "Everything about this war is dangerous," Revan interrupted. "The question is not whether we use dangerous tools. The question is whether we use them to save lives or abandon them out of fear." Malak wanted to argue, but could not find the words. Once again, Revan's logic seemed unassailable. The Council had been wrong about intervening in the war. Perhaps they would be wrong about this too. They kept the discovery secret, telling no one. The first of many secrets they would keep, the first of many lines they would cross in the name of greater good. The Force itself seemed to pulse with warning. On distant Coruscant, the Jedi Masters felt disturbances they could not name, saw shadows gathering around their wayward students. Master Kava meditated for hours, seeing visions of Revan and Malak standing in darkness, surrounded by power that corrupted as it gave strength. But they were too far away to intervene, and the visions were too unclear to act upon. They could only watch and wait and pray that their fears were unfounded. Meanwhile, in the war rooms of the Republic fleet, Revan and Malak planned their campaigns with growing brilliance and growing ruthlessness. They were winning. That was what mattered. They were saving the galaxy, even if the methods troubled some and horrified others. And with each victory, with each difficult choice, with each moral compromise justified by strategic necessity, the darkness crept deeper into their souls. They did not notice, or perhaps they noticed but told themselves it did not matter. They were in control. They were doing good. They were heroes. The Mandalorians began to fear them. Stories spread through the enemy ranks of the masked Jedi, who seemed to know their every move, who sacrificed his own troops without hesitation, who won battles through cold calculation rather than honor. Some Mandalorian commanders privately admitted that Revan's tactics were more ruthless than their own, stripped of even the warrior's code that gave Mandalorian warfare its structure. The Casus Fett, one of Mandalore's most trusted lieutenants, studied reports of Revan's campaigns with growing unease. This is not how Jedi fight. This is not even how we fight. What have they become? What they needed to become. Mandalore the Ultimate responded. We pushed them to it. We forced them to be ruthless, and now they will defeat us because of it. The final phase of the war was approaching. 3 years of desperate fighting had pushed the Mandalorians back, but they were far from defeated. Mandalore was gathering his forces for a last stand, choosing a world that would force a decisive battle. A world called Malak 5. Revan received the intelligence reports and studied them in silence. He saw immediately what Mandalore intended, a final confrontation where both sides would commit everything. No retreat, no second chances, winner takes all. Malak entered the command center and found his friend staring at the holographic display of Malak 5. What are you thinking? Revan's response was quiet, almost contemplative. I'm thinking that this is where it ends. One way or another. We can win this. We've beaten them at every turn. Yes, Revan agreed. But at what cost? Standard tactics will cost us years of siege and hundreds of thousands of casualties. He paused. Unless we're willing to pay a different price. What do you mean? Revan turned to face his friend, and though Malak could not see his expression behind the mask, something in his posture suggested a decision had been made, one that could not be unmade. I mean that to end this war, we may have to become worse than the monsters we're fighting. And in that moment, standing in the soft glow of the holographic display, 2 men who had set out to save the galaxy took their final steps toward damnation, neither recognizing that the path they walked had ceased to lead toward light long ago. Intelligence reports confirmed what Revan had suspected. Mandalore the Ultimate was gathering his entire fleet at Malak 5, a remote world in the Outer Rim known for its violent gravity fluctuations and mysterious ancient ruins. Every available Mandalorian ship, every warrior who could hold a weapon, converging on a single point for one final apocalyptic battle. The Republic High Command saw it as an opportunity. Admiral Karath, his face lined with 3 years of war, laid out the strategic situation. They're concentrating their forces. If we can defeat them here, the war ends. Mandalorian culture demands they accept total defeat if we break their main fleet and kill Mandalore himself. How long would a conventional assault take? Revan asked. His voice filtered and emotionless through his mask. Karath pulled up casualty projections. 6 months minimum, possibly longer. The gravity wells around Malachor make standard fleet tactics nearly impossible. We'd be fighting ship to ship in close quarters. Projected casualties are in the hundreds of thousands for our side alone. Unacceptable, Malak said immediately. We've come too far to waste that many lives in the final battle. Revan said nothing. He simply stared at the holographic representation of Malak 5, his mind calculating possibilities that no one else in the room could see. Over the following days, Revan became increasingly withdrawn. He spent hours alone in his quarters, refusing even Malak's company. Finally, Malak forced his way in, and found his friend surrounded by holographic displays showing technical schematics of a device he did not recognize. "What is that?" Revan looked up slowly. "Insurance. A way to end this war in 1 day instead of 6 months." "Tell me." Revan stood and walked to the viewport. "During our survey of Malak 5, our scouts discovered something. Ancient technology buried beneath the surface. A weapon created by the Sith thousands of years ago. They called it the Mass Shadow Generator." "What does it do?" "It manipulates gravity on a planetary scale. Creates an artificial singularity that collapses everything in the system into a single point. Ships, planets, everything." Malak felt his stomach drop. "You're talking about a superweapon, a planet killer." "I'm talking about ending this war," Revan corrected. "Mandalore has gathered his entire fleet at Malak 5. If we activate the weapon at the right moment, we destroy their entire military in one stroke." "At what cost?" Revan turned to face him. "The cost of everyone in the system, Mandalorian and Republic alike. Thousands of our own troops will die." The silence that followed was absolute. Malak stared at his friend, searching for some sign that this was a test, a dark joke, anything but a serious proposal. "You can't be considering this." "I've done nothing but consider it for days," Revan replied. "Every alternative leads to months of bloodshed, hundreds of thousands dead on both sides. This way we sacrifice thousands to save hundreds of thousands. Those thousands trust us. They followed us into war believing we would protect them. And we will protect the galaxy by ending this threat permanently," Revan said. "That's what leadership means. Making the choices others cannot make." Malak wanted to refuse, wanted to argue that there had to be another way. But he looked at the casualty projections for conventional assault and could not deny the mathematics. Thousands versus hundreds of thousands. The logic was brutal but unassailable. "If we do this," Malak said slowly, "we can never take it back. We cross a line that cannot be uncrossed. I know. The Council will declare us fallen. The Republic will call us murderers. I know that too. And you still think we should do it?" Revan nodded. "Everything we've done, every battle we've fought, leads to this moment. We can win the war in 1 day. Or we can fight for 6 more months and watch hundreds of thousands die slowly. Those are the only choices." Malak closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. They had come so far together, crossed so many lines, made so many terrible choices in the name of victory. One more didn't seem to make much difference. "Then we do what's necessary," Malak said finally. "Together." The Battle of Malak 5 began like any other major engagement. Republic and Mandalorian fleets converged on the planet, thousands of ships filling the space around the dark world. Revan positioned his forces carefully, deliberately placing Republic ships in specific formations that made no tactical sense to anyone but him. On the planet's surface he faced Mandalore the Ultimate in single combat, while the fleets battled overhead. The duel was brutal and swift. Revan's tactical genius extended to personal combat, and within minutes Mandalore lay dying. With his last breath, Mandalore whispered something that made Revan freeze. "It began with you. It will end with you. You were tested and found worthy. They're waiting for you." Before Revan could demand explanation, Mandalore died. Revan took his mask, the symbol of Mandalorian leadership, and looked up at the battle raging in the sky. He gave the signal. General Mitra Surik, positioned near the ancient Sith weapon with sealed orders, opened the encrypted message. Her hands shook as she read. For a long moment, she simply stared at the words, unable to process what was being asked of her. Then she activated the Mass Shadow Generator. The planet's core imploded. Gravity twisted in ways that violated every natural law. Ships from both fleets were pulled inexorably toward the surface, their shields failing, their hulls crumpling like paper. Thousands of Republic soldiers, men and women who had trusted their commanders, who had fought alongside Revan for 3 years, died screaming as their vessels were crushed. The Mandalorian fleet was annihilated completely, but so was a significant portion of the Republic force. Mitra Surik felt every death through the Force. Thousands of connections severed simultaneously, each one a wound in her spirit. She collapsed, screaming, her mind shattered by the psychic trauma. Other Jedi throughout the fleet felt it too. Some fell comatose. Others went mad. A few simply died, their hearts stopping as the Force itself recoiled from the atrocity. On his flagship, safely positioned beyond the weapon's range, Revan watched Malachor 5 tear itself apart. Beside him, Malak stood in silence, his face pale. They had won. The war was over. The Mandalorian threat eliminated. But at what cost? "We did it," Malak said quietly. "We saved the galaxy." Revan's response was flat, emotionless. "Yes, we saved it." Neither of them felt horror. Neither felt the guilt that should have crushed them. Behind his mask, Revan felt only cold satisfaction at a plan executed perfectly. Malak felt relief that the decision had not been his to make. Something fundamental had died in them at Malachor, though they did not recognize it yet. The last fragments of the Jedi, they had once been burned away in the planet's destruction. Admiral Korath approached cautiously. "Sir, we're receiving reports. General Surik is catatonic. At least a dozen Jedi among the fleet are dead or unresponsive. The survivors are demanding to know why we positioned them so close to the weapon's effect." Revan turned to face him. "Tell them it was necessary. Tell them their sacrifice ended the war and saved countless lives." "But sir, they're calling it murder. They're saying we used our own people as bait." "Then they don't understand strategy," Revan said coldly. Dismissed. Korath left, deeply troubled. The commanders he had followed through 3 years of war were not the same men anymore. Something had broken inside them, and he feared what they might become. In the days following Malachor, Revan began interrogating captured Mandalorian commanders with renewed intensity. Mandalore's dying words haunted him, tested, and found worthy. "They're waiting for you." Someone had orchestrated this entire war. Someone had manipulated the Mandalorians into attacking the Republic, had guided events to test the defenders, had identified the strongest and most ruthless commanders. And whoever they were waiting in the unknown regions. Revan made his decision. The war was not over. This had only been the first act. The real enemy still lurked beyond known space, and he would find them. He would pursue them into darkness. He would become strong enough to face any threat. He would do whatever was necessary. And if that meant crossing more lines, making more terrible choices, sacrificing more innocence in the name of victory, then so be it. Malachor 5 had taught him that ends truly did justify means, that victory required the will to pay any price, bear any burden, commit any atrocity. He had become the monster he needed to be, and the galaxy would never be the same. The victory parades on Coruscant lasted for 3 days. Millions lined the streets as Revan and Malak walked through the Senate district, their names chanted by crowds who saw them as the greatest heroes the Republic had ever known. Confetti rained down from the towers. Children waved flags bearing the Revanchist symbol. Veterans of the Mandalorian Wars, scarred and weary, saluted as their commanders passed. The war was over. The Mandalorian threat had been eliminated. Billions of lives saved from conquest and slaughter. The Republic, teetering on the edge of collapse just months before, now stood triumphant. But something was wrong. Those who stood close enough to see Revan's masked face noticed he barely acknowledged the crowds. He moved through the celebration like a man walking through a dream, present in body but distant in spirit. Malak, walking beside him, smiled and waved to the masses, but his eyes held a hardness that had not been there before the war began. Senator Vandar, addressing the assembled government, praised their courage and tactical brilliance. You defied the Jedi Council when they counseled inaction. You took up arms when others hesitated. You saved our civilization from certain destruction. The Republic owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Revan listened to the speech from the dais, motionless. When his turn came to address the Senate, his response was brief, almost perfunctory. We did what was necessary, nothing more. The real heroes are the soldiers who died in service to the Republic. The audience erupted in applause, moved by his humility. But those who knew him best, who had served alongside him for 3 years of brutal warfare, heard something else in his voice, a flatness, an absence of emotion that went beyond modesty into something colder. Admiral Karath approached him after the ceremony. Sir, the fleet is requesting your continued leadership. The men want to know if you'll stay on as Supreme Commander now that the crisis has passed. Revan turned to face him, the red and gray mask revealing nothing. That depends on whether our work is truly finished. The Mandalorians are defeated. What more is there? Revan did not answer immediately. He looked out over the cityscape of Coruscant, its endless towers gleaming in the setting sun. Finally, he spoke. Tell the men, I'll give them my answer soon. First, I have questions that need answering. In the weeks following the victory celebrations, Revan became obsessed with interrogating Mandalorian prisoners. He spent hours in detention facilities, questioning captured commanders, reviewing their logs and communications, searching for something no one else seemed to notice. Malak found him one evening in a cell block deep beneath the military headquarters. His friend sat across from a grizzled Mandalorian captain, the prisoner's armor stripped away, his defiant expression slowly crumbling under relentless questioning. Why did Mandalore order the attack on Cathar? Revan asked for what must have been the 100th time. We wanted to prove our strength, the prisoner repeated, to show the Republic what happens to those who resist. That's what you were told. But who gave the actual order? Who decided Cathar specifically? The prisoner hesitated. Mandalore decides all targets. Yet the attack followed a very specific pattern. You avoided certain systems entirely. Casus Fett's battle logs show explicit orders to bypass strategically valuable worlds in favor of less important targets. Why? The Mandalorian's defiance wavered. I don't know what you're talking about. Revan leaned forward. Yes, you do. Someone was giving Mandalore instructions. Someone was directing this war like pieces on a Decharic board. Tell me who. The prisoner's face went pale. Even if such a thing were true, even if someone had been guiding Mandalore the ultimate, do you think any of us were told? We followed orders. That's what warriors do. Revan stood abruptly and left the cell without another word. Malak followed him into the corridor. What are you searching for? Malak asked quietly. The truth, Revan replied. This war makes no sense. The Mandalorians are warriors, yes, but they're not stupid. Their strategy was deliberately wasteful, almost designed to test us rather than conquer us. Someone manipulated them into this conflict. Manipulated? By whom? That's what I intend to discover. Over the following months, Revan assembled a disturbing picture from fragments of intelligence. Mandalorian communications logs showed encrypted messages from beyond known space, battle plans that originated not from Mandalore's war councils but from coordinates in the unknown regions, orders to strike certain worlds while leaving others untouched, following a pattern that made no strategic sense unless viewed as a test of Republic defenses and Jedi capabilities. One night, Revan summoned Malak to his private quarters. His friend arrived to find the room transformed into a makeshift intelligence center, holographic star charts covering every surface, documents and data crystals scattered across every table. "I know you've been investigating something," Malak said. "The entire command staff has noticed. What have you found?" Revan activated the central display. A map of the galaxy appeared, with red lines showing Mandalorian attack patterns over the 8 years of war. He ran a simulation. The red lines moved across the map, and as they did, a pattern emerged. The Mandalorians had avoided striking at key Republic infrastructure. Coruscant, despite being the capital, was never threatened. Corellia, with its massive shipyards, barely touched. Instead, the attacks focused on testing Republic military response, gauging Jedi capabilities, identifying which commanders showed strategic genius under pressure. "This wasn't an invasion," Revan said quietly. "This was an evaluation. Someone wanted to see how the Republic would respond to a major threat. They wanted to identify our strongest warriors, our most brilliant tacticians, our most ruthless commanders. An evaluation for what purpose?" Revan pulled up another set of data. Mandalorian prisoners. When questioned about who gave Mandalore the ultimate his orders, all point to the same source. Someone in the unknown regions. Someone they refer to only as the true Sith. Malak felt ice run through his veins. The Sith are extinct, destroyed a generation ago. These prisoners believe otherwise, and more than that, they believe the true Sith orchestrated this entire war to study us, to identify potential threats or potential assets before launching their own invasion. The silence that followed was profound. Malak slowly circled the holographic display, studying the data, wanting to find flaws in Revan's analysis, but finding none. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Someone had indeed been pulling strings from the shadows. "If this is true," Malak said slowly, "then we need to tell the Council. This is exactly the kind of hidden threat they sensed." Revan's laugh was bitter. The Council sensed danger and did nothing. They sat in their temple while billions died. "Do you really think they'll act on whispers from beyond known space?" "Then we inform the Senate. Let the Republic military investigate." "And how long will that take?" "Committees, debates, bureaucracy. By the time they decide to act, the true Sith could be at our doorstep." Malak turned to face his friend. "What are you suggesting?" Revan met his gaze, the mask revealing nothing but his voice carrying absolute certainty. "I'm suggesting we pursue this ourselves. We take a fleet into the unknown regions. We find these true Sith. We eliminate the threat before it can materialize." "That's insane. We'd be going beyond all known charts, into completely unexplored space, chasing an enemy we're not even sure exists. 3 years ago, you stood beside me when I defied the Council to fight the Mandalorians. You trusted my judgment then. I'm asking you to trust it now." Malak wanted to refuse. Every rational part of his mind screamed that this was madness, that they should inform proper authorities and let others handle it. But he looked at the data Revan had compiled, saw the patterns his friend had uncovered, and could not deny that something had indeed manipulated the Mandalorian wars from behind the scenes. And more than that, he trusted Revan. After 3 years of following his strategies, seeing his tactical genius prove itself time and again, how could he doubt now? "If we do this," Malak said slowly, "we'll be defying the Council again, possibly committing treason against the Republic by taking military assets without authorization. I know. We could be walking into a trap. This could be exactly what our hidden enemy wants." "I know that too. And you still think we should go?" Revan nodded. "Everything we sacrificed at LOTR 5, all those deaths, mean nothing if there's an even greater threat waiting to invade. We have to finish this." Malak closed his eyes. feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. They had come so far together, crossed so many lines, made so many terrible choices in the name of the greater good. One more didn't seem to make much difference. How many ships would we need? Revan pulled up fleet manifests. 1/3 of the Republic Navy, volunteers only. We take those who fought with us in the Mandalorian Wars, soldiers and Jedi, who already understand that sometimes rules must be broken to protect what matters. The logistics are impossible. The Senate will never approve. Then we don't ask for approval, Revan said simply. We gather those loyal to us. We tell them the truth. We give them a choice, and we leave before anyone can stop us. Over the next month, Revan and Malak quietly contacted commanders, ship captains, and Jedi who had served under them during the war. The message was always the same. The war is not truly over. A greater threat exists beyond known space. Join us in stopping it before it's too late. Admiral Karath was among the first to agree. You saved the Republic once. If you say there's another threat, I believe you. My ships are yours. Captain Carthonesi, younger and more idealistic, was more hesitant. This feels wrong. We should inform the proper authorities. The proper authorities will debate while the enemy prepares, Revan replied. We don't have time for bureaucracy. In the end, even Carth agreed, swayed by Revan's reputation and the compelling evidence of hidden manipulation behind the Mandalorian Wars. The Jedi who had fought as revanchists were easier to convince. They had already broken from the Council once. Most of them felt the same pull Revan described, a sense that their work remained unfinished, that the peace they had won was fragile and temporary. Mitra Surik, forever changed by what she had experienced at Malachor 5, sought out Revan before the fleet's departure. I don't think you should do this. Something feels wrong about it. Revan regarded her quietly. You felt the deaths at Malachor more than anyone. I understand why you would counsel caution. It's not caution, she insisted. It's warning. The Force feels dark around this decision, like we're being led somewhere we shouldn't go. Or perhaps the Force is guiding us to confront a threat before it's too late, Revan countered. Fear can masquerade as wisdom. We learned that when the Council refused to fight the Mandalorians, Mitra wanted to argue further, but could find no words that might penetrate the absolute certainty in Revan's voice. She left, troubled, and would later return to face the Jedi Council's judgment for her role in activating the mass shadow generator. The Jedi Council learned of Revan's plans when it was already too late to stop them. Master Vrook himself traveled to the military shipyards where the fleet was gathering, demanding an audience. The meeting took place in a docking bay. With Revan's flagship looming behind them, the Master's face was grave. You're making the same mistake again. Charging forward without understanding the full situation. Can you not see the pattern? Every step you take leads you further from the light. We saved the Republic, Revan replied. That's the only pattern I see. At what cost? You used a superweapon that created a wound in the Force itself. You sacrificed thousands of your own troops. You've hardened your heart until I wonder if anything of the Jedi you once were remains. I am what the galaxy needed me to become. And now you take a fleet into the unknown regions, chasing shadows. Vetch stepped closer, his voice dropping. Please, Revan, I am begging you. Don't do this. Turn back before it's too late. For a moment, something in Revan's posture suggested hesitation. Behind the mask, perhaps he questioned himself, wondered if the old master might be right. Then Malak stepped forward, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. We've come too far to doubt now. The moment passed. Revan's certainty returned. Thank you for your concern, Master Vrook, but our decision is made. Then you leave me no choice, Vrook said sadly. By the authority of the Jedi Council, I declare you are no longer welcome in the Order. You are cast out, severed from our fellowship. If you proceed as outcasts and renegades. We've been outcasts since we chose to fight while you chose to watch, Malak said, his voice hard. Your disapproval means nothing to us now. Vrug turned to leave, then paused. One last warning. The dark side does not announce itself with fanfare. It comes as necessity, as the only logical choice. By the time you realize what has happened, you will be too far gone to save. Remember that in the days to come. He walked away, his robes trailing behind him, leaving Revan and Malak alone in the shadow of their flagship. Did you feel that? Malak asked quietly. For a moment there, I almost believed him. Revan watched the Jedi Master disappear into the distance. The Council has been wrong about everything else. They're wrong about this too. But he did not sound as certain as his words suggested. Some small part of him, buried deep beneath layers of justification and necessity, wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. The fleet departed 3 days later. 1/3 of the Republic Navy, hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers and Jedi, jumping into hyperspace toward coordinates that did not appear on any known star chart. They were chasing whispers and shadows, pursuing an enemy that might not even exist, leaving behind safety and law and everything they had fought to protect. On Coruscant, in the Jedi Temple, the Council gathered and felt the disturbance ripple through the Force. Master Kavar bowed his head. It has begun. The fall we feared, and we are powerless to stop it. Master Vruk stood at the window watching the stars. All we can do now is pray that some part of them remembers the light, that when the darkness comes for them, they find the strength to resist. But in his heart he knew they would not. He had seen too much, felt too much through the Force. Revan and Malak were already falling. They simply did not know it yet. And in the depths of the unknown regions, on a world shrouded in eternal storms, an ancient being felt the approaching fleet and smiled. The strongest had been identified. The testing had worked perfectly. Now they would come to him, and he would complete the corruption that war had begun. The trap was set. The prey was approaching, and the Sith Emperor waited with infinite patience for the moment when heroes would become his servants. The unknown regions earned their name honestly. Beyond the edge of mapped space, hyperspace routes became unreliable and dangerous. Stars clustered in unusual patterns. Gravity anomalies made navigation treacherous. The Republic fleet jumped cautiously from system to system, scouts sent ahead to ensure each path was survivable. They found worlds, dozens of them, but every single one bore the unmistakable marks of Sith occupation. The first planet they surveyed, a frozen wasteland orbiting a dying red star, held ruins that made even hardened soldiers uneasy. Black stone temples carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Statues of ancient Dark Lords frozen in poses of triumph or agony. Tombs sealed with massive doors inscribed with warnings in a language none of them could read, but all of them could feel the menace emanating from. "This is wrong," one of the Jedi whispered to her companion as they explored the surface. "The dark side is thick here. We shouldn't linger." Admiral Karath, standing nearby in cold weather gear, pointed to the architecture. "These ruins are thousands of years old, yet they're perfectly preserved. What kind of civilization was this?" "The kind that fell to darkness," the Jedi replied, "and we should leave before we share their fate." But Revan ordered detailed surveys. He walked through the temples himself, Malak at his side, studying the carvings and artwork. There was something methodical about his examination, as if he were cataloging weapons in an arsenal, rather than exploring the remnants of an evil empire. "Look at this," Revan said, pointing to a massive frieze carved into black stone. "It shows the construction of massive fleets, the conquest of systems. This wasn't just an empire. It was a machine designed for domination." Why are we studying this? Malak asked. Shouldn't we be searching for the enemy, not learning from their ruins? Understanding their methods helps us defeat them, Revan replied. Know your enemy better than he knows himself. It was a reasonable answer. But something in the way Revan touched the ancient stones, the way he lingered over depictions of Sith Lords wielding power, suggested more than academic interest. They moved on to other worlds. Each one revealed more of the ancient Sith Empire's extent. Dozens of systems, perhaps hundreds, once unified under Dark Lords whose names had been lost to time, but whose legacy still poisoned the Force. On a world called Korriban, they found something that would change everything. The planet's surface was a wasteland of red sand and black rock, baked under a harsh sun. But the Valley of the Dark Lords, a massive canyon filled with tombs and monuments, radiated dark side energy so intensely that several Jedi refused to leave the ship. Revan insisted on exploring, personally. He led a small team, including Malak, and a handful of their most loyal followers deep into the valley. The tombs of ancient Sith Lords towered above them, massive structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Inside the largest tomb, they discovered a sealed chamber. Revan spent hours examining the locks and wards protecting it, his knowledge of ancient languages and Force techniques allowing him to slowly unravel the protections. When the door finally opened, they found a treasure trove of Sith knowledge. Holocrons, crystalline devices that contained the teachings and memories of long-dead Dark Lords. Ancient texts describing Force techniques that had been forbidden by the Jedi for millennia. Weapons imbued with dark side energy. We should destroy these, one of the Jedi said immediately. This knowledge is too dangerous to preserve. Revan picked up one of the holocrons. Activating it, a ghostly figure appeared, an ancient Sith Lord whose name had been forgotten, but whose presence still commanded attention even in holographic form. Knowledge is never dangerous, Revan said quietly. Only ignorance is dangerous. If we're going to face the true Sith, we need to understand them completely. Understanding is one thing, Malak said, carefully. Studying their teachings is something else entirely. We're not embracing the dark side, Revan replied. We're simply learning about it. There's a difference. Is there? The other Jedi asked. Every Jedi who has studied Sith teachings has been corrupted by them. The darkness is seductive. It promises power while stealing your soul. Then we must be stronger than those who fell before us, Revan said. We've faced impossible challenges before. This is no different. Against his better judgment, Malak found himself agreeing. They had proven themselves exceptional, time and again. Perhaps they truly were strong enough to study darkness without being consumed by it. They took the holocrons back to the fleet. In his private quarters, Revan began studying them obsessively. The ancient Sith Lords spoke to him through their recordings, teaching philosophies that contradicted everything he had learned as a Jedi. Peace is a lie, one holocron intoned. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. Revan listened, not with the horror of a Jedi confronting evil, but with the careful attention of a student absorbing lessons. He began to see patterns in Sith teaching, principles that aligned uncomfortably well with strategies he had already employed during the Mandalorian Wars. The strong must rule the weak. Mercy is weakness. Victory justifies any cost. These were not alien concepts to him anymore. He had lived them on Malachor 5. The holocrons were simply articulating what he had already proven through action. Malak visited him late one night and found his friend surrounded by active holocrons, ghostly Sith Lords all speaking simultaneously, their wisdom overlapping into a dark symphony. "This is madness," Malak said, shutting down several of the devices. You've been in here for 3 days straight. The crew is worried. I'm learning, Revan replied. Every holocron contains tactical knowledge, force techniques, strategic principles. If we're going to face an empire of Sith, this is how we prepare. But at what cost? Look at yourself, brother. You barely sleep. You barely eat. You're letting this consume you. Revan stood, and Malak noticed that his friend moved differently now, more deliberately, more menacingly. Even the mask he wore seemed to have taken on a darker quality, as if the red and gray had deepened into something more sinister. I'm in control, Revan said flatly. The dark side whispers promises of power, yes, but I'm strong enough to take what's useful and discard what's corrupting. That's what they all say. That's what every fallen Jedi has believed right up until the moment they realize they're lost. Then watch me prove them wrong. Over the following weeks, both Revan and Malak began studying the Sith teachings in earnest. They told themselves it was necessary, that understanding the enemy required immersing themselves in the enemy's philosophy. They believed they were strong enough, disciplined enough, wise enough to resist corruption. They were wrong. The changes were subtle at first. Their meditation sessions, once focused on connecting with the light side of the Force, gradually shifted toward drawing on emotion and passion. Their treatment of the crew became harsher, less patient. Mistakes that would once have earned gentle correction now brought sharp reprimands. Admiral Karath noticed. He approached Malak one day on the bridge, speaking quietly so others would not overhear. "Sir, permission to speak freely." "Granted. The men are concerned. Both you and Revan have changed since we began exploring these Sith worlds. You're more distant, colder. Some are wondering if we should turn back." Malak's response was sharp. "We came here to find the true Sith. That mission hasn't changed. If the crew lacks the stomach for what's necessary, they can take shuttles back to Republic space." Karath chose his next words carefully. "I'm not questioning the mission. I'm questioning what it's costing us. Studying the enemy shouldn't require becoming like the enemy." Malak softened slightly. "I appreciate your concern, Admiral. But we know what we're doing. Trust in that." Karath nodded and withdrew, but he remained troubled. He had served with these men for years, had watched them win impossible victories through brilliant tactics and unshakable resolve. But the commanders he saw now bore only surface resemblance to the heroes who had saved the Republic. The visions began after their 6th month in the unknown regions. Both Revan and Malak started experiencing intense dreams, so vivid they felt more real than waking life. A figure appeared in the darkness, shrouded and ancient, radiating power that made even their dream selves want to kneel in submission. "Come to me," the figure whispered. "I am what you seek. I am the answer to your questions. I am the power you need to save your galaxy." Revan woke from these dreams drenched in sweat despite his quarters being climate-controlled. The voice lingered even after waking, echoing in his mind, promising him knowledge and strength beyond measure. He said nothing to anyone at first, but one night he encountered Malak in the corridor outside their quarters at an hour when both should have been sleeping. "You've seen him too," Malak said. It wasn't a question. Revan nodded. "Every night for 2 weeks now, getting stronger each time." "What do you think it means?" "I think it means we're getting close. Whatever we've been searching for is reaching out to us." They stood in silence for a moment, two men who had once been Jedi Knights now looking at each other through eyes that had seen too much darkness. "Should we tell the others?" Malak asked. "No, not yet. Let's see where these visions lead first." The dreams intensified. The shadowy figure began showing them things, visions of a massive fleet, dark and terrible, waiting in deep space, images of Republic worlds burning under invasion, glimpses of a war that would make the Mandalorian conflict seem like a skirmish by comparison. And through it all, The voice promised them the power to prevent this catastrophe, the strength to save everything they held dear. All they had to do was come. All they had to do was accept what was offered. Coordinates began appearing in their dreams, specific hyperspace routes, a path through the treacherous unknown regions, leading to a single world. Revan plotted the course and recognized it immediately. Dromund-Kaas, a world that appeared in several of the ancient texts they had recovered, described as the capital of the reconstituted Sith Empire. The true Sith were real. The threat was genuine, and they were being invited to the enemy's throne world. Common sense demanded they refuse. Every tactical principle Revan had ever learned screamed that walking into an obvious trap was suicide. But the voice in the dreams was persuasive. It promised answers. It promised that no harm would come to them. It promised that the Sith Emperor himself wished to meet these remarkable warriors who had defeated the Mandalorians so decisively. Revan called a meeting of his senior staff and explained what he had discovered. Omitting the dreams and visions, he presented it as intelligence gathered from ancient texts and captured Mandalorian records. The true Sith Empire exists. Its capital is on a world called Dromund-Kaas. We have been invited to an audience with their emperor. The reaction was immediate and unanimous. "It's a trap," Admiral Karath said flatly. "They want to capture or kill our leadership." Possibly, Revan agreed. Or possibly they're curious about us, want to take our measure before deciding whether to invade Republic space. Either way, we gain nothing by refusing. "We could turn back," one of the Jedi suggested, "report what we've found to the Council, and let the Republic prepare defenses." "Prepare how?" Revan asked. "We don't know the size of their fleet, their capabilities, their intentions. All we have are ruins and rumors. The Council will debate endlessly while the threat grows. We need actionable intelligence." "So you intend to walk into their capital with no backup and no escape plan?" "I intend to meet this Emperor face to face and determine whether he's a genuine threat or a remnant of a fallen empire clinging to past glories," Revan replied. "That's the only way to know for certain." Malak spoke up, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "I agree with Revan. We've come this far. We can't turn back now without concrete answers." One by one, the others voiced their concerns and their reluctant agreement. They had followed Revan through the Mandalorian Wars. They had defied the Jedi Council and the Republic Senate. Having come this far, turning back felt like betrayal of everything they had sacrificed. Only Admiral Karath remained openly skeptical. "If something happens to both of you on Dromund-Kaas, this fleet will be leaderless in hostile territory. At least leave operational command with someone who can get the ships home safely." "Agreed," Revan said. "If we don't return within one standard week, you have full authority to withdraw and report everything we've discovered to the Republic. And if you do return, then we'll have the answers we came for." The decision made, they plotted a course for Dromund-Kaas. The journey took 5 days through hyperspace routes that felt wrong, as if space itself resisted their passage. The force grew heavy and oppressive as they approached their destination, a weight that pressed down on every force-sensitive individual in the fleet. When they finally emerged from hyperspace above Dromund-Kaas, even the non-force-sensitive crew members felt something was deeply wrong with this place. The planet below was shrouded in perpetual electrical storms. Lightning arced between massive clouds, illuminating a dark world where thunder never ceased. On the surface, sensors detected enormous cities built from black stone, architecture that radiated power and menace even from orbit. "Scanning for defenses," the tactical officer reported. "I'm reading massive energy signatures, weapon emplacements that could destroy our entire fleet. But nothing is powering up. They're just waiting. They're letting us know they could destroy us but choosing not to," Malak observed, showing strength through restraint. A communication came through, audio only, a voice that seemed to carry weight beyond mere sound. "Welcome, heroes of the Republic. The Emperor grants you an audience. A shuttle will guide your landing. Come unarmed and in peace. No harm shall befall you within these walls." Revan and Malak exchanged glances. The moment of decision had arrived. They could still turn back, flee to safety, live with uncertainty, or they could descend to that dark world and face whatever waited below. "We go," Revan said simply. They took a small shuttle, just the two of them, leaving the fleet in Admiral Carroth's hands. As they descended through the storm clouds, lightning playing across their shields, both men felt their hearts hammering, despite their force-enhanced calm. The shuttle landed in a massive courtyard paved with black stone. Sith troopers, their armor angular and menacing, stood at attention but made no move to interfere. A single figure approached, robed and hooded. "Follow me. The Emperor awaits." They walked through corridors of dark stone, past statues of ancient Sith lords, under archways carved with symbols of power and domination. The dark side was so thick here that breathing it felt like inhaling smoke. And with every step, Revan and Malak felt something fundamental shifting inside them. The corruption they had believed themselves immune to was not a sudden fall. It was this: walking willingly into darkness, studying evil and calling it education, embracing power and calling it necessity. By the time they reached the throne room doors, they were already lost. They simply did not know it yet. The doors opened. Beyond them lay a chamber vast and terrible, and at its center, seated upon a throne of shadow, waited the being who had orchestrated everything. The Emperor who had manipulated the Mandalorian wars, who had guided their every step, who would complete the corruption that war and pride had begun. Revan and Malak stepped forward into the darkness, and the galaxy held its breath, sensing that something precious had just been lost forever. The throne room of the Sith Emperor stretched beyond normal perception. It seemed larger on the inside than the palace could possibly contain, as if the dark side itself had warped space to accommodate the being at its center. Pillars of black stone rose into shadows that no light could penetrate. The air itself felt heavy, pressing down with the weight of millennia of accumulated evil. And seated upon a throne, carved from a single piece of obsidian, radiating power that made reality bend around him, sat the Sith Emperor. His appearance was almost disappointing at first glance. A humanoid figure in simple dark robes, face hidden beneath a hood. But as Revan and Malak approached, they felt the true nature of what sat before them. This was not a man. This was a wound in the Force made flesh, an absence of light so profound it had gained sentience and malevolence. "Welcome," the Emperor said, and his voice carried harmonics that resonated in their bones. "I have waited centuries for warriors of your caliber to find their way to me." Revan forced himself to speak, though his throat felt tight. "You manipulated the Mandalorian wars. You tested the Republic to find its strongest defenders." The Emperor's response might have been a laugh, though it sounded more like wind through a tomb. "Tested? No, I shaped you. Every choice you made, every victory you achieved, every line you crossed, I guided your steps. The Mandalorians were simply tools. You were always my true project." Malak's hand moved toward where his lightsaber would normally hang, though he had been instructed to come unarmed. The Emperor noticed the gesture, and this time definitely laughed. "You think your weapons could harm me? You believe yourselves strong enough to challenge a being who has lived for over 1,000 years, who has drunk the life force of entire worlds. Your arrogance is almost charming." "We came here to stop you," Revan said, trying to sound defiant despite the growing fear in his chest. "We will not allow you to invade the Republic." "Stop me?" The Emperor rose from his throne, and as he did, the room seemed to darken further. My dear child, you will not stop me, you will serve me. That is why I brought you here." He gestured, and invisible force slammed into both of them, driving them to their knees. They tried to resist, throwing up force barriers, drawing on all their training and power. It made no difference. The Emperor's strength was beyond anything they had imagined possible. "Let me show you the truth," the Emperor said, and his consciousness reached out like a blade toward their minds. Revan felt the invasion like ice water flooding his brain. He tried to raise mental shields, techniques he had mastered years ago, defenses that should have been impenetrable. The Emperor brushed them aside as if they were cobwebs. And then Revan's mind was laid bare. Every memory, every thought, every secret exposed to the ancient being's examination. The Emperor sifted through Revan's psyche with the casual thoroughness of someone reading a datapad. He saw the young Jedi who had wanted only to help people. He saw the decision to defy the Council. He saw every battle, every tactical choice, every calculated sacrifice. And he saw Malak 5. "Ah yes," the Emperor purred, "your masterpiece. Thousands of your own troops killed by your order. Do you remember how it felt in the moment you gave the command?" Revan tried to deny it, tried to hold on to the justifications he had built around that decision. But the Emperor was pulling truth from the depths of his consciousness, memories he had suppressed even from himself. He had felt satisfaction giving that order, relief that the war would finally end. A dark thrill at wielding such absolute power over life and death. In the moment Matra Surik activated the mass shadow generator, and Malak 5 began tearing itself apart, killing thousands of Republic soldiers who had trusted him. Revan had felt only cold satisfaction at a plan executed perfectly. The guilt came later, the horror at what he had done. But those were surface emotions, layers he had built to hide from himself the deeper truth. Part of him had enjoyed it. "You see," the Emperor said softly, speaking directly into Revan's mind, "you are already mine at Malachor. You simply did not know it yet." Beside him, Malak was experiencing his own invasion. The Emperor tore through his defenses with equal ease, exposing memories and emotions Malak had spent years burying. The Emperor found resentment there, deep wells of it, hidden beneath loyalty and friendship. Malak had loved Revan like a brother, yes, but he had also envied him, envied his tactical genius, envied the way soldiers and Jedi alike gravitated toward his leadership, envied how Revan made difficult decisions that Malak knew he himself lacked the strength to make. At Malachor, while Revan had given the order to activate the weapon, Malak had felt relief that he was not the one making that choice. Relief and a small, shameful spark of satisfaction. His friend was willing to damn himself so that Malak could remain clean. And underneath that, deeper still, a thought Malak had never consciously acknowledged. Perhaps Revan should not always be the leader. Perhaps others deserved recognition for the victories won. The Emperor saw all of it and smiled. Such ambition, such potential. You will make an excellent apprentice once your master has taught you all he can. Both men tried to fight, tried to break free from the mental invasion, but they might as well have tried to hold back an ocean with their bare hands. The Emperor had forgotten more about the Force than they would ever learn. He was power incarnate, darkness made conscious, evil refined to its absolute essence. "Let me show you the future," the Emperor said, and visions flooded their minds. They saw Republic worlds burning under Sith invasion, Coruscant itself falling as fleets of dark ships blockaded the planet and ground troops marched through the Senate district. They saw the Jedi Temple in ruins, its halls filled with the dead. They saw civilization itself crumbling as the Sith Empire expanded across the galaxy unchecked. "This is what comes if you resist me," the Emperor explained calmly. "This is the future I will make real if you refuse my offer." Then the visions shifted. Now they saw themselves leading fleets against that same Sith invasion. But in these visions they commanded power beyond anything they currently possessed. Dark side techniques that made them unstoppable, strength drawn from passion and fury that let them crush enemies with ease. They saw themselves victorious, standing over the corpses of Sith Lords who had dared challenge them. They saw the Republic saved not through Jedi philosophy, but through raw power and ruthless efficiency. "This is what you can become if you accept my teachings," the Emperor whispered. "This is the strength you need to save everything you love. All you must do is embrace what you already are. The Malak or Revan, the commander who wins through any means necessary." The temptation was overwhelming. After everything they had sacrificed, all the lines they had crossed, all the guilt they carried, here was someone offering to make it all meaningful, to give them power that would ensure their sacrifices were not in vain. But still, they fought. Still some core of light within them resisted. The Emperor sighed, almost disappointed. "You cling to Jedi teachings, even now, after they failed you so completely. Let me show you one final truth." He reached deeper into their minds than before, past conscious thought into the very foundation of their identities, and he found the cracks that Malak had created. The fractures in their souls where guilt and justification warred with each other. The places where darkness had already taken root but had been denied and suppressed. And into those cracks, the Emperor poured pure dark side energy. Revan screamed, not from physical pain, but from the agony of having his entire worldview inverted. Everything he had believed about himself, every moral foundation he had built his identity upon, shattered under the Emperor's assault. He saw himself clearly for the first time, saw that the Jedi Council had been right, that their warnings about the dark side had been correct, that his fall had begun the moment he placed his judgment above ancient wisdom and had continued through every tactical atrocity he had committed. But instead of horror at this realization, the Emperor made him feel liberation. Yes, you fell. Yes, you became something terrible. But you were strong enough to do what was necessary. The Jedi were weak. Their compassion made them impotent. You transcended their limitations and became powerful enough to save the galaxy. The reframing was subtle and devastating. Every evil he had committed was recontextualized as strength. Every line he had crossed became evidence of his superiority over lesser beings who lacked the will to do what was necessary. The darkness that had been growing in Revan for years suddenly had validation, permission, a philosophy that said his worst actions were actually his greatest achievements. His resistance crumbled. Malak fell even faster. The Emperor found his resentment and ambition and amplified them 1,000-fold. You have served in another's shadow for too long. You are strong enough to lead, powerful enough to rule. Why accept second place when you could be first? The brotherhood that had bound Malak to Revan was not destroyed, not yet, but it was damaged, twisted, reformulated into the relationship between Sith Master and apprentice rather than between equals. When the Emperor finally released them from the mental assault, both men collapsed to the floor, gasping. Minutes passed as they struggled to process what had been done to them. Finally, Revan rose to his knees, then to his feet. When he spoke, his voice carried a new quality, harder, colder, certain. "What do you require of us?" The Emperor settled back onto his throne, satisfied. "There is an ancient weapon in Republic space, a space station built by the Rakata during the height of their infinite empire. It is called the Star Forge, and it can produce an unlimited number of ships by drawing energy directly from stars. You will find it. You will claim it. You will use it to build a fleet and conquer the Republic in my name. And if we refuse, then I will invade immediately, and you will watch from a cell as everyone you ever cared about dies screaming, or you can serve me. become strong enough to face even my power, eventually, and perhaps one day truly save the galaxy as you always intended. It was a trap within a trap. The Emperor was offering them a path that might lead to rebellion against him. Or perhaps he was simply lying. Or perhaps he was so confident in his power that he truly believed, even armed with the Starforge, they would be no threat to him. Revan could not tell. His mind, invaded and altered, could no longer think clearly about long-term consequences. He only knew that accepting seemed the only path that led anywhere other than immediate catastrophe. He looked at Malak, saw his own surrender reflected in his friend's eyes. Together, they knelt. "We will serve you," Revan said, and the words felt like ash in his mouth, even as part of him believed them completely. The Emperor nodded. "You will be trained in the ways of the Sith. You will take the title Darth, as all my servants do, and you will prove yourselves worthy of the power I grant you by conquering the Republic that failed you so utterly." Over the following weeks, their training began. The Emperor's most skilled Sith Lords taught them techniques that horrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Force lightning, that channeled raw hatred into devastating energy. Mind tricks that crushed wills and bent even strong individuals to their service. Combat forms that drew power from rage and pain. And with each lesson, each dark side technique they mastered, the corruption deepened. They told themselves they were learning these things to better fight the Sith eventually, that they would turn this power against their enslaver when the moment was right. But the truth was simpler and more terrible. They were enjoying it. After years of restraint, of moderating their emotions and suppressing their passions as Jedi were taught to do, the dark side offered freedom. Freedom to hate their enemies. Freedom to glory in victory. Freedom to embrace the power that came with giving in to every impulse toward domination. The day came when they were given their new names in a formal ceremony. The Emperor himself presided, his presence making the Force itself tremble. "You are no longer Jedi, no longer bound by their weaknesses. You are Sith, and you will bear the title Darth before your names, as mark of your ascension. Rise, Darth Revan." Revan stood, and the name settled onto him like a second skin. It felt right, proper, as if he had always been meant to carry this title. "Rise, Darth Malak." Malak rose, and in his eyes burned hunger that had nothing to do with defeating the Emperor. Eventually, he wanted power now, wanted the strength to reshape the galaxy according to his vision. "Go forth," the Emperor commanded. "Find the Starforge, build your fleet, conquer the Republic, and when you have softened them sufficiently, I will arrive to claim what is rightfully mine." They departed, Drummond caches transformed. The men who had arrived were gone, replaced by something darker, harder, more dangerous. They wore the same faces and moved with the same bodies, but everything essential about them had been inverted. When they returned to their fleet, Admiral Karath took one look at them and felt ice in his veins. "Sir, are you all right? What happened down there?" Revan's response was flat and cold. "We found the truth. Now we act on it." The fleet prepared to return to Republic space, but they did not report to anyone. They did not seek out the Jedi Council or inform the Senate of what they had discovered. Instead, they began searching for star maps, following clues Revan had uncovered in ancient texts during their time exploring Sith ruins. The crew noticed the changes immediately. Their commanders were harsher, quicker to anger, slower to forgive mistakes. Discipline grew stricter. The Jedi among them sensed the dark side rolling off both Revan and Malak like smoke from a fire. Some tried to leave. They requested transfers, claimed family emergencies, made excuses to return to Republic service. The first few were allowed to depart without incident. But as time went on and more tried to abandon the fleet, Revan's patience wore thin. One Jedi, A young woman who had followed him through the entire Mandalorian War confronted him directly. "You've changed. Both of you have changed. Whatever happened on Dromund-Ka has corrupted you. I can't follow you anymore." Revan regarded her silently for a long moment. Then he gestured, and she collapsed, clutching her head and screaming. When he released her from the Force attack, she lay gasping on the deck. "You can leave," Revan said quietly. "But if you speak of what you've seen here, if you warn the Council or the Republic, I will find you, and what you just experienced will seem pleasant by comparison. Do you understand?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and fled. After that, fewer tried to leave. Malak watched these incidents with growing unease. "Brother, we're becoming the thing we set out to destroy." Revan's response was cold. "We're becoming strong enough to destroy it. There's a difference." "Is there?" The question hung in the air between them, unanswered, because neither of them wanted to examine it too closely. Neither wanted to confront the truth that they had already fallen completely and were simply going through the motions of their Emperor's plan. The hunt for the Star Forge continued, and with each star map they found, with each ancient Rakata site they discovered, the transformation deepened. They were no longer heroes. They were no longer even Revan and Malak as those men had existed. They were Darth Revan and Darth Malak, Sith Lords, servants of the dark side, fallen Jedi who would bring the Republic to its knees. And the galaxy, ignorant of what had transpired in the unknown regions, continued its peaceful existence, unaware that its greatest defenders had become its most dangerous enemies. The hunt for the star maps became an obsession that consumed Darth Revan completely. Ancient Rakata technology, scattered across 5 worlds, each piece a fragment of coordinates leading to the ultimate weapon. He had found the first map on Dantooine years ago, before the Mandalorian Wars had even ended. Now he would claim the rest. Tatooine's map lay buried beneath the Dune Sea, protected by ancient droids and traps that had killed countless treasure hunters over millennia. Revan bypassed them all with ease, his knowledge of ancient technology and the Force allowing him to navigate defenses designed to stop lesser beings. Kashyyyk's map hid in the Shadowlands, the darkest depths of the Wookiee homeworld where light never reached and predators ruled unchallenged. Revan walked through that darkness as if he belonged there, the creatures sensing something more dangerous than themselves and retreating before him. Manon's map rested on the ocean floor, in ruins so deep that the pressure should have crushed any vessel attempting to reach it. But Revan found a way, always found a way, his tactical genius applied now to archaeology and ancient mysteries rather than warfare. Korriban, the Sith homeworld they had visited before, held the final piece. Deep in a tomb they had not fully explored, protected by trials meant to test Sith apprentices, Revan claimed what he needed without hesitation or difficulty. The dark side sang to him here, welcomed him home, recognized him as one of its own. With each map recovered, Malak noticed his friend changing further. The mask Revan wore never came off now, not even in private. His voice grew colder, more mechanical through the vocoder. The man who had once been his brother was disappearing behind layers of darkness and power. "We have them all," Malak said, when the final map was secured, the coordinates to the Star Forge. Revan activated all 5 maps simultaneously. Holographic projections merged, calculations running for long minutes, until finally a single point in space was revealed. The Lehon system, home to Rakata Prime, the heart of the ancient Infinite Empire that had ruled the galaxy 25,000 years before. "Prepare the fleet," Revan commanded. "We move immediately." The journey to Lehon took 3 days through hyperspace. When they emerged, the sight that greeted them made even hardened soldiers gasp in awe and terror. The Star Forge dominated the system. A space station so massive it seemed to bend reality around itself, orbiting close to the system's star, its dark metal surface drinking in solar radiation and converting it into matter through processes that violated every known law of physics. Construction bays larger than cities churned out warships at impossible speeds. Each ship emerged fully armed, fully crewed by droids, ready for immediate deployment. "This is it," Malak breathed. "With this we could build a fleet that would make the Republic Navy look like children's toys." Revan said nothing. He simply stared at the station, feeling its power calling to him through the Force. The Starforge was not merely a factory. It was alive in its own way, fueled by the dark side, drawing energy, not just from the star, but from the hatred and ambition of those who commanded it. He wanted it, needed it, not just for the Emperor's plans, but for himself. With this power, he could reshape the galaxy, save it from the true Sith. Build an empire strong enough to stand against any threat. "Take us to the docking bay," Revan ordered. They boarded the station with a small team, walking through corridors that hummed with dark power. The architecture was alien, predating modern galactic civilization by eons, yet somehow Revan understood it instinctively. He navigated to the command center as if he had been there before. The control room was vast, dominated by interfaces designed for a species long extinct. Revan studied them briefly, then placed his hands on the primary console. Dark side energy flowed from him into the machine, and the Starforge responded like a loyal servant recognizing its master. Holographic displays activated, showing production capacity that defied comprehension. The station could produce a capital ship every few hours, smaller vessels even faster. Give it months, and it could outfit a fleet numbered in the thousands. Malak watched his friend commune with the ancient technology. "Brother, this power is staggering, but it comes with a price. Can you feel it? The station feeds on darkness. It will consume us if we're not careful." Revan turned to face him, and though Malak could not see his expression behind the mask, the response chilled him. "Then we must be strong enough not to be consumed. We've come too far to turn back now." They activated the Starforge's production systems. Within hours, new ships began emerging from the construction bays. Sith interceptors, fast and deadly. Larger cruisers armed with weapons that could reduce cities to ash, and always more. The station's output limited only by how much dark side energy its masters could channel into it. Admiral Karath, summoned to the command center, stared at the displays in horrified fascination. With this production capacity, you could conquer the Republic in months. No defense could stand against such numbers. "That's the idea," Revan replied simply. Over the following weeks, as their fleet grew, Revan and Malak performed a ceremony they had learned on Drummond Kais. They embraced the Sith titles fully, no longer pretending this was temporary or that they planned to betray the Emperor eventually. They were Darth Revan and Darth Malak, Dark Lords of the Sith, and they would build an empire worthy of that title. But in that ceremony, Malak felt the shift in their relationship. Revan was no longer his friend and equal. Revan was his master, and Malak, despite all his power and accomplishments, was merely the apprentice. Second, lesser, always in another's shadow. He accepted it, for now, but deep in his heart, where the Emperor's corruption had planted seeds of ambition, resentment began to grow. The Starforge continued its work, pouring out ships in numbers that would have taken the Republic years to construct. And with each vessel created, with each moment spent channeling dark side energy into the ancient machine, Revan and Malak fell deeper into corruption they could no longer recognize. They told themselves they were building strength to fight the true Sith. But the truth was simpler. They were building an empire because they wanted to, because power felt good, because conquering the weak and ruling the strong aligned with everything the dark side had taught them. The Republic had no idea what was coming. No warning that their greatest heroes had become their worst nightmare. No preparation for the storm that was about to break over their peaceful civilization. Darth Revan stood in the command center of the Starforge, watching his fleet grow, and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Soon the galaxy would kneel. Soon the Jedi would understand their failure. Soon he would have the power to face even the Emperor himself. Or so he believed. The dark side whispered promises. The Starforge amplified his strength. But neither told him the price that would eventually come due. Neither warned him that the apprentice standing beside him was already beginning to covet the power he wielded. The Jedi Civil War was about to begin, and it would be brother against brother, master against apprentice, darkness fighting darkness, until only ruin remained. The Sith fleet struck the Republic without warning in the year 3959 before Yavin. Darth Revan led the invasion personally. His tactical genius now turned against the civilization he had once saved. World after world fell in rapid succession, but unlike the Mandalorian assault, this conquest followed a disturbing pattern. Revan did not destroy, he converted. Taris, the ecumenopolis that had suffered so much during the Mandalorian Wars, found itself occupied by Sith forces who left infrastructure intact. Factories continued operating. Shipyards kept producing. The population lived in fear but remained alive. Revan was building an empire, not a graveyard, and he needed these worlds functional for what he believed would come after. Darth Malak commanded the fleet's vanguard, and his approach differed markedly from his master's. Where Revan calculated precisely how much force was needed, Malak preferred overwhelming displays of power. Where Revan sought to minimize casualties, Malak believed terror kept populations compliant. The first serious argument between them came after the subjugation of a mining colony in the Outer Rim. Malak had ordered orbital bombardment of a rebel stronghold, killing thousands of civilians in the blast radius. Revan summoned him to the flagship immediately. "You exceeded your authority," Revan said, his voice cold through the mask's vocoder. "That colony's ore production was vital to our shipbuilding capacity. Now it will take months to repair." The colonists were harboring Jedi. Malak replied, "I eliminated the threat by destroying what we came to claim. That's not strategy, that's waste. Perhaps your strategy is too cautious." Malak shot back, "We're Sith lords, not Republic administrators. Fear keeps people in line better than mercy ever could." Revan stepped closer, and Malak felt the weight of his master's power pressing down on him. "You question my methods." Malak held his ground, but felt sweat beading on his forehead. "I'm suggesting there's more than one way to achieve our goals." "There is only my way," Revan said flatly. "You are my apprentice. You execute my plans. If that's unclear, I can find someone else who understands proper obedience." The threat was unmistakable. Malak swallowed his pride and bowed. "Yes, master, I understand." But he didn't understand. Or rather, he understood too well. He was no longer an equal partner in this endeavor. He was a subordinate, expected to follow orders without question, to remain forever in Revan's shadow, despite his own considerable power and accomplishments. The resentment that had been planted by the Emperor began to grow. Meanwhile, the Republic struggled desperately to mount a defense. The Jedi Order, already weakened by the departure of so many during the Mandalorian Wars, found itself fighting former friends and students. The emotional toll was devastating. How do you strike down someone you trained, someone who once fought beside you for justice? A young Jedi named Bastila Shan emerged as the Republic's greatest hope. Her battle meditation, a rare force ability that could affect the morale and effectiveness of entire fleets, kept the Republic from collapsing completely. As long as she lived and fought, there was hope. Revan recognized the threat immediately. She must be eliminated or turned. With her power serving us, the Republic's defeat becomes inevitable. Let me handle her, Malak volunteered. I'll lead a strike force and end this. No, Revan said. Her abilities are too valuable to waste. We capture her alive and break her will. She'll serve the Sith or die slowly. Malak bristled at yet another refusal, another decision made without his input, but he said nothing, simply nodded and withdrew. In private, he began to think dangerous thoughts about how he might lead differently, how he would prosecute this war without Revan's excessive caution, how much stronger the Sith Empire could be with him in command. The Emperor's corruption had done its work perfectly. The seeds of betrayal, planted in Malak's mind on Drummond Cassas, now found fertile ground in his wounded pride and growing ambition. The war ground on for months. Revan's forces pushed deeper into Republic space, but progress slowed as resistance stiffened. Bastila's battle meditation coordinated defenses with increasing effectiveness. What should have been a swift conquest became a prolonged campaign. Malak's frustration grew with each setback. We're too cautious, too careful. We should strike at the core worlds directly, break their will with overwhelming force, and sacrifice our future empire in the process. Revan replied, think strategically, apprentice. We're not just conquering. We're preparing these systems to face the true Sith when they inevitably invade. Malak wanted to scream that he didn't care about the true Sith, that the only enemy that mattered was the one before them. But he held his tongue, nodded, and retreated to his own flagship. He began cultivating personal loyalty among certain commanders, not openly defying Revan, but quietly building a power base, officers who appreciated his more aggressive approach, Sith acolytes, who saw him as the stronger leader. Slowly, carefully, he prepared for the possibility that he might need to act without his master's blessing, or against his master entirely. The opportunity came unexpectedly. Jedi intelligence reported that Bastila Shan would be leading a strike team to capture or kill Darth Revan, a desperate gambit. But the Council saw no other option. If they could eliminate the Sith Lord leading the invasion, perhaps Malak would be less effective and the war could be turned. Revan learned of the plan through his network of spies. Rather than avoid the confrontation, he welcomed it. Let them come. I'll capture their precious battle meditation user and turn her to our cause. The trap was set. Revan positioned his flagship to appear vulnerable while maintaining superior firepower in reserve. When Bastila's strike team attacked, they would find themselves outmaneuvered and overwhelmed. But Malak saw something else in this scenario, an opportunity disguised as a crisis. His master would be engaged in combat with Jedi boarding his ship, distracted, vulnerable. And if something were to happen during that battle, if the flagship were to suffer catastrophic damage from an unexpected source, who could say whether it was the Jedi's doing or simple misfortune? Malak made his decision. He would prove himself the stronger Sith. He would take the title of Dark Lord for himself, and he would prosecute this war with the ruthlessness it demanded, unconstrained by Revan's outdated strategic considerations. The Sith way was clear. The apprentice eventually challenges the master. That was the natural order. That was how the strong rose and the weak fell. He began issuing quiet orders to his own fleet. When the moment came, they would know what to do. And Darth Revan, confident in his superiority and his apprentice's loyalty, had no idea that betrayal was about to strike from the one direction he never thought to guard. The greatest tragedy was not that Malak planned to betray Revan. The tragedy was that in doing so, he was proving himself exactly the kind of Sith the Emperor had intended to create: ambitious, ruthless, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for power. The brothers who had set out to save the galaxy were now poised to destroy each other, and the Republic, caught between two Dark Lords fighting for supremacy, would suffer regardless of which one won. The attack came exactly as Revan had predicted. Bastila Shan's strike team, supported by several Jedi Knights and Republic commandos, breached the hull of Revan's flagship and fought their way toward the bridge. Revan's forces resisted, but not too effectively. He wanted the Jedi to reach him, wanted the confrontation that would let him capture Bastila and turn her power to the Sith cause. Darth Malak watched from his own ship, the Leviathan, positioned strategically within firing range. His bridge crew awaited his orders, hand-picked officers who had proven their loyalty to him personally, rather than to the Sith Empire as a whole. On Revan's bridge, the fighting reached its climax. Bastila and her team burst through the final blast doors to find Darth Revan waiting, lightsaber ignited, surrounded by the bodies of those foolish enough to approach him. "You've come far, young Jedi," Revan said, his voice distorted through his mask. "But this is where your mission ends." Bastila ignited her own blade, the yellow glow reflecting her determination. "We're here to stop you. The atrocities end today." Atrocities. I'm saving the galaxy from a threat you cannot comprehend. Join me, and I'll show you the truth. The Jedi attacked as one. Revan moved with supernatural speed, his blade a blur of red light. One Jedi fell, then another. The Republic soldiers died before they could even fire their weapons. Within moments, only Bastila and two other Jedi remained standing, and even they were clearly outmatched. "This is your last chance," Revan said. "Kneel and serve or die with your friends." Bastila raised her blade defiantly. "Never." On the Leviathan, Malak made his move. "All batteries, target the enemy flagship's bridge. Prepare to fire on my command." His tactical officer hesitated. "Sir, Darth Revan is on that bridge." "I'm aware," Malak replied, coldly. "Fire." The Leviathan's guns opened up at point-blank range. Turbolaser fire, designed to destroy capital ships, slammed into Revan's bridge with devastating force. The shields collapsed immediately. The hull breached, explosive decompression tore through the command deck. Bastila felt the impact and threw up a force barrier instinctively, protecting herself and one other Jedi. The rest of her strike team died instantly, and there, amidst the flames and debris, she saw Darth Revan staggering, his armor breached, his body broken by the betrayal he had never anticipated. Their eyes met across the burning bridge. In that moment, Bastila felt something she could not explain. A connection forming through the Force, a bond created by her instinctive act of protecting him, even as her mission had been to kill him. She reached out with the Force and caught his falling body, pulling him toward the escape pod. The Jedi training insisted she should let him die, let the monster responsible for so much death finally face justice. But her deeper instinct, her connection to the living Force, demanded she preserve life even when that life was her enemy. They escaped seconds before the bridge section exploded completely. On the Leviathan, Malak watched the destruction with satisfaction. No life signs from the bridge. Revan is dead. The Jedi did our work for us. He addressed the fleet through all channels. Darth Revan has fallen. I claim the title of Dark Lord of the Sith. All ships will now answer to me. Any who refuse will be destroyed. There was no resistance. The fleet had followed strength, and now strength wore a different face. Malak had proven himself willing to do what was necessary, unencumbered by mercy or sentiment. Admiral Karath, serving aboard the Leviathan, approached cautiously. "My lord, what are our orders?" "Continue the conquest," Malak commanded. "But we do it my way now. No more surgical strikes. No more careful preservation of infrastructure. We'll break the Republic's spirit through overwhelming displays of power. starting with Taris. Talaris, Carrie's face paled. My lord, that's a city world with billions of civilians. Exactly. We'll broadcast the bombardment across every Republic system. Let them see what happens to worlds that resist us. Let them understand that Mercy died with Revan. In an escape pod drifting through space, Bastila stabilized the critically injured Sith Lord. She should have killed him. Should have ended the threat while he lay helpless. But the bond between them formed in that instant when she saved his life made the thought physically painful. Instead, she brought him to the Jedi Council on Dantooine. The Masters gathered around the comatose form of their greatest enemy and faced an impossible decision. We should execute him, Master Broke said. He's responsible for countless deaths. He's responsible for countless deaths. Justice demands it. Jedi don't execute helpless prisoners, Master Kavar countered. That's not our way. Bastila spoke up quietly. I can feel his mind. It's shattered, broken beyond normal healing. But there might be another way. We could use the Force to rebuild his identity, give him new memories, make him loyal to the Republic. That's a violation of everything we stand for, Rook protested. Rewriting someone's mind is no better than what the Sith do. The debate raged for hours. In the end, desperation won over principle. The Republic was losing. Malak's new reign of terror was even worse than Revan's calculated conquest. They needed any advantage they could find. And perhaps, just perhaps, they could redeem a fallen Jedi by giving him a chance to start over. They performed the procedure. Revan's memories of being a Sith Lord were suppressed. New memories were implanted, a simple identity as a Republic soldier. The most powerful Sith in the galaxy became a blank slate, innocent and unaware of the atrocities he had committed. When he woke, he knew nothing of Darth Revan. He remembered only his fabricated past and felt only loyalty to the Republic he had once sought to destroy. Meanwhile, Malak completed his first act as Dark Lord. The bombardment of Taris reduced the entire planet's surface to burning rubble. Billions died in hours. The footage was broadcast across the galaxy as promised, and the message was clear. This is the cost of resistance. This is what awaits any world that defies the Sith Empire, Cornel or burn. The Republic's morale shattered. Worlds surrendered without fighting. The Jedi Order went into hiding. Their temples abandoned, their members scattered and hunted. The golden age of the Republic ended in fire and terror. And at the heart of it all, Darth Malak sat upon his throne aboard the Starforge, drawing power from the ancient station, becoming more machine than man as the dark side consumed him piece by piece. He had won. He had proven himself stronger than Revan. He had seized power and would use it without restraint or mercy. But in quiet moments, when the throne room was empty and the weight of command pressed down upon him, Malak felt something unexpected. Regret. Not for betraying Revan, that had been necessary, the Sith way, the natural order of apprentice supplanting master, but regret for what they had lost. For the friendship that had been destroyed, for the brothers who had once fought side by side, who had trusted each other absolutely, who had believed they were saving the galaxy together. That brotherhood was dead now, killed not by external enemies, but by the darkness they had embraced willingly. And though Malak ruled the Sith Empire, though he commanded power beyond measure, in destroying Revan, he had destroyed the last piece of himself that remembered being something other than a monster. The galaxy burned. The Republic crumbled. And two men who had once been heroes became the greatest villains their civilization had ever faced, unable to recognize themselves in the mirror or remember who they had been before. Darkness claimed them completely. Darth Malak's rule transformed the Sith Empire into something far more brutal than Revan had ever intended. Without his master's strategic restraint, Malak unleashed terror as policy. Taris was only the beginning. The once vibrant city world lay in ruins, its surface bombarded until nothing remained but slag and ash. Billions dead in a single day, their only crime being that a few Jedi had hidden among them. Malak broadcast the destruction across every Republic system, his message simple and horrifying: surrender or share their fate. World after world capitulated. Planetary governors sent messages of submission rather than face orbital bombardment. The Republic Senate relocated from Coruscant to safer locations, debated endlessly while their civilization crumbled around them. But Malak himself was changing in ways that went beyond mere cruelty. The Star Forge fed on dark side energy, and in turn it fed that darkness back into those who commanded it. The station was alive in its own terrible way, a parasite that grew stronger by draining its masters. During a battle with a Jedi strike team, Malak's jaw was destroyed by a lightsaber strike. Rather than heal naturally, he had it replaced with a metal prosthetic that synthesized his voice into something mechanical and inhuman. The change was symbolic. With each passing month, less of the man remained, and more of the monster emerged. He consumed Sith artifacts to increase his power, draining their energy into himself until his eyes burned yellow with dark side corruption. He kept captured Jedi in stasis pods aboard the Starforge, using the station's technology to slowly drain their force energy and channel it into his own reserves. When injured in combat, he would drain one of these prisoners to near death, healing himself instantly while they withered. His paranoia grew with his power. Officers who questioned orders were executed publicly. Sith apprentices who showed too much ambition disappeared. Anyone who reminded him even slightly of Revan found themselves assigned to suicide missions. Admiral Karath, who had served both Revan and Malak, saw the difference clearly. Where Revan had been coldly calculating, Malak was chaotic and cruel. Where Revan had inspired loyalty through competence, Malak commanded through fear. The Empire was stronger militarily, but rotting from within. Meanwhile, the Jedi Council's gambit with the mind-wiped Revan proceeded better than anyone had hoped. The man who woke with new memories showed none of his former darkness. He was kind, brave, and genuinely committed to helping the Republic. Bastila Shan was assigned to watch over him, using their force bond to keep him stable and guide his fragmented psyche. They assigned him to her ship, the Endar Spire, keeping him close while the Council debated what to do next. The bond between them deepened naturally, Bastila finding herself drawn to this version of Revan in ways that confused and troubled her. Then, Malak's fleet ambushed them above Taris. Darth Bandon, Malak's new apprentice, led the assault with orders to capture Bastila alive. The Sith Lord wanted her battle meditation under his control, wanted to break her and turn her as he himself had been turned. The Endar Spire fought valiantly, but was overwhelmed. Bastila escaped to the planet's surface just before Malak ordered its destruction. The amnesiac Revan escaped with her, neither knowing the twisted irony of the situation. The greatest Sith Lord in history, memory wiped and rebuilt, now worked to rescue the Republic from the apprentice who had betrayed him. They fled Taris moments before it burned. What followed was a quest across the galaxy. The Council revealed to Revan pieces of the truth, that the Star Forge existed, that finding it could end the war. They sent him to locate the star maps, retracing the same path he had walked as a Sith Lord, unknowingly following his own footsteps. With each map found, fragments of memory surfaced, dreams of battles he shouldn't remember, visions of dark temples he had never visited, a mask that called to him from somewhere deep in his subconscious. Bastila felt him changing through their bond, and grew afraid. The Council had warned this might happen, that his true memories could resurface. She held on to hope that the good man she had come to care for would remain dominant, even if he remembered being Darth Revan. Malak learned that Revan lived. The news came from captured Jedi who had seen him on various worlds. At first Malak refused to believe it. He had watched the bridge explode, had confirmed no life signs, but the reports were too consistent to ignore. His reaction was complex: rage that Revan had survived, fear that his former master would reclaim power, but also buried beneath layers of dark side corruption, something that might have been relief. The brother he had killed yet lived. Perhaps some part of him had never wanted Revan truly dead. He became obsessed with recapturing Revan, not to kill him, but to turn him back to the dark side. To have his master return and validate the choices Malak had made. To hear Revan say that betrayal had been right, that Malak was worthy of the power he had seized. The obsession blinded him to other threats. The Republic, given breathing room by Malak's fixation, began mounting more effective resistance. Bastila's battle meditation coordinated victories that should have been impossible. The tide was turning, slowly but undeniably. Then Malak succeeded in capturing Bastila. He brought her to the Starforge and spent weeks breaking her will, not through physical torture, but psychological. He showed her the futility of resistance, made her feel every Republic soldier's death through the Force, promised her that joining him was the only way to end the suffering. She fell. The light in her eyes dimmed and was replaced by Sith yellow. When Revan finally found her, confronted her on the surface of Rakata Prime, she tried to turn him back to darkness. But Revan had changed. He remembered everything now. Remembered being Darth Revan, remembered the atrocities, remembered the fall, but he also remembered the good man he had been before and the better man he had become after. He chose light over darkness, redemption over power. Through their bond, stronger than any Sith corruption, he pulled Bastila back from the abyss. Her fall had been recent enough that the light could still reclaim her. She wept in his arms, freed from Malak's influence, and together they prepared for the final confrontation. The Republic fleet attacked the Starforge. Revan boarded the station alone, fighting through Sith defenders, heading toward the throne room where Malak waited. The former brothers would meet one last time, and only one would leave alive. The throne room of the Starforge pulsed with dark energy. Darth Malak stood at its center, his yellow eyes tracking Revan's approach. The synthesized voice through his metal jaw spoke with something between hatred and desperate hope. "I knew you would come. I knew you survived. Part of me always knew." Revan ignited his lightsaber, the blade humming in the charged air. "This ends today. Malak, no more death. No more war." Malak's laugh was bitter and mechanical. "You speak of ending death. You who killed thousands at Malak-Sor 5. You who started this war. You created me, Master. I'm everything you taught me to be." The words struck deeper than any blade, because they were true. Revan had fallen first, had embraced the dark side, had shown Malak the path to power through ruthlessness. Every atrocity Malak had committed was built on foundations Revan had laid. "I know what I was," Revan said quietly. "I know what I did. That's why I have to stop you, to atone for the monster I created." At one, Malak's rage exploded outward. "You want redemption while I burn for our shared sins. You get to be the hero while I'm the villain. We fell together. We should have ruled together." He attacked, and the duel began. They had trained together, fought together, knew each other's techniques intimately. Each strike was counted, each feint anticipated. They moved through the throne room like dancers performing a routine rehearsed over years of brotherhood. But they were no longer equals. Malak had grown stronger through consuming dark artifacts and draining captured Jedi. Revan was redeemed but diminished. His connection to the dark side severed, his raw power reduced. Malak forced him back step by step. "You're weak now. Light side makes you weak. Mercy makes you weak. Love makes you weak." He struck hard, and Revan's guard broke. The follow-up blow sent him sprawling. Malak raised his blade for the killing strike, then hesitated. Through his metal jaw, words came that sounded almost like they hurt to speak. Come back to the dark side. Be my master again. We can rule together, as we should have from the beginning. Please. The plea hung in the air, desperate and broken. Beneath all the corruption, beneath the monster he had become, a fragment of the friend remained. The brother who had trusted absolutely, the companion who had followed Revan into war, believing they were saving the galaxy together. Revan looked up at his former friend and saw clearly what they both had lost. I can't, Malak. That path leads only to more suffering. For you, for everyone. Let it go. Come back to the light with me. Malak's face twisted with anguish and rage. The light won't have me. I've done too much. Gone too far. There's no redemption for what I've become. There's always redemption if you choose it. Malak's response was to roar in fury and attack with renewed ferocity. But Revan had discovered Malak's technique for healing himself. The captured Jedi held in stasis throughout the throne room, their energy being drained to fuel the Dark Lord's power. As they fought, Revan systematically freed the prisoners. Each one released weakened Malak further. Each liberation was itself an act of redemption, saving lives instead of spending them. The duel reached its climax as the last prisoner was freed. Malak, weakened and desperate, made one final lunge. Revan's counter was swift and precise. His blade pierced Malak's chest, the killing blow delivered not with hatred, but with sorrow. Malak collapsed, his life bleeding away. The mechanical breathing of his prosthetic jaw stuttered. Revan knelt beside him, cradling his dying friend. Through the failing vocoder, Malak's voice came weak and distorted. I wanted us to save the galaxy. We were supposed to save it. We tried, Revan replied gently, but we lost our way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I betrayed you. I'm sorry I became this. The mask of the Dark Lord cracked, and beneath it, Revan saw something that broke his heart. Just a man, just his friend, dying and afraid and filled with regret for everything they had lost. You were my brother, Revan whispered. I'm sorry I led you down this path. I'm sorry I failed you. Malak's hand reached up, touched Revan's face with surprising gentleness. Did we ever have a choice? After Malachor, after we crossed that line, was there ever a way back? Revan had no answer. Perhaps there hadn't been. Perhaps they were doomed from the moment they placed their judgment above the Jedi Council's wisdom. Perhaps the fall was inevitable once they decided that ends justified means. Would you do it again? Malak asked, his voice fading. If you could go back, knowing everything, would you still defy the Council? Would you still fight? Revan closed his eyes. The question was impossible. If he hadn't fought, the Mandalorians might have won, might have destroyed the Republic, but fighting had led to this, to his fall, to Malak's death, to countless atrocities committed in the name of necessity. I don't know, he admitted finally. I honestly don't know. Malak's laugh was weak but genuine. Liar, you do it again, for the right reasons. You always do what you think is right. Damn the consequences. His breathing stopped, his hand fell away, and Darth Malak died there in his former master's arms, the last piece of the man he had been finding peace in those final moments. Revan held his friend's body as the Starforge shook around them. The Republic fleet was winning, destroying the station that had fueled the Sith Empire. He had only minutes to escape. But he took a moment to close Malak's eyes, to remove the mask that had hidden the monster and reveal the man beneath. To mourn not just the friend he had lost, but the innocence they had both sacrificed in the name of saving the galaxy. Outside, the Starforge was dying. Explosions tore through its structure, As Republic weapons found critical systems, the ancient Rakatan technology, powered by the dark side for 25,000 years, finally met its end. Revan escaped aboard the Ebon Hawk, watching from the cockpit as the massive station broke apart. Bastila stood beside him, their bond stronger than ever, and together they witnessed the destruction of everything they had built as Sith Lords. "It's over," Bastila said quietly. "The war is over. We won." "Did we?" Revan asked. "How many died because of us? How many worlds were destroyed? What did we really win?" She had no answer. The Republic was saved. Yes, the Sith Empire destroyed, but the cost had been staggering. Entire worlds lay in ruins. The Jedi Order was shattered. Millions dead in a war that need never have happened if two young Jedi had simply trusted their master's wisdom. In the wreckage of the Starforge, in the space where empires fell and brothers died, the Force whispered lessons that would echo through generations. Power corrupts. Good intentions pave roads to darkness. The strongest bonds can be destroyed by ambition. Heroes can become monsters by degrees, so small they never notice until it's too late. Revan and Bastila returned to the Republic as heroes, their crimes forgiven in light of their final redemption. They married despite the Jedi Council's disapproval, choosing love over dogma, hope over despair. But Revan never forgot, never forgave himself. The face of Malak dying in his arms haunted his dreams. The thousands sacrificed at Malachor 5 whispered accusations in quiet moments. The weight of what he had done, what he had become, never fully lifted. Years later, he would disappear into the unknown regions again, seeking the true Sith Empire that had started everything, seeking to finish what he and Malak had begun before darkness claimed them, seeking perhaps redemption that could never truly be found. But that is another story. This story ends here, in the wreckage of the Starforge, with a redeemed Sith Lord mourning the friend he could not save, and a galaxy slowly healing from wounds that two heroes turned villains had inflicted upon it. The tragedy of Revan and Malak was complete, and their names would echo through history as a warning of how the brightest lights can fall into deepest darkness, of how brotherhood can be destroyed by power, of how the road to hell is paved not with evil intentions, but with the absolute certainty that you alone know what must be done. They wanted to save the galaxy. In the end, they nearly destroyed it, and the only redemption possible was to stop the machine they had built, to kill the monster they had created, and to live with the knowledge of what they had lost.